So, during my senior year of high school, we had a career day, as most high schools do, is normal to have, and I ended up stopping by the recruiter's table. It was for the military. So I filled out a contact card. They called me, we conversed, I signed up, and little did I know that the military would become part of my purposeful pressure journey. Okay, so let's get into it. So at the age of 18, I had to wait until I turned 18 because I was, of course, 17. So I ended up signing up for the Air Force. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anyone who had been in the military or anyone who was currently in the military. I didn't know what to expect by joining. All I knew was that I wanted to get out of my hometown and I wanted to create a life for myself. I wanted to do something and have something for myself. So, here is the story of my military journey. Now, this is not a woe is me story, and this is not my entire story. This is just a short version of my story. Now, I am not going to play the victim here. This is just my story, my experience, and my journey. So I spent 12 years in the military doing the same job. The first day that I arrived on the job, I knew that it was not where I wanted to be. Immediately, I knew that when I walked through the doors. I knew that I just would not like it. It just was not me. So during my military time, I observed some things that just took an 18-year-old by surprise. So I saw military coworkers that were cheating on their spouses. I saw another coworker that was accused of rape. I saw another coworker that was struggling with substance abuse. And I also saw people receiving promotion because they were hand selected to be groomed, or, in other words, favoritism. I personally experienced so much unfairness. I experienced racism. I experienced less opportunities for professional growth. I experienced threats to be demoted. And oh my gosh, the list could go on, but I'm just gonna stop right there. So during my 12 years, I often felt fearful. I felt alienated, prejudged, rejected, sad. I felt like people wanted to break me because they did not know me. They wanted to break me based on my, I would say, my exterior. They wanted to break me mentally and spiritually. And I thought, this just may be this specific place. This may be just this specific job. Maybe if I stick it out, go somewhere else, apply for a new job, things would be different. I did that, went to another place, couldn't get another job, and things remained the same. So I'm going to get a little more in depth. So here's something that I went through while I was in the military that I have never shared with friends, co-workers, supervisors, family members. I've shared this with no one when I was going through it. And even today, I could probably count on one hand who I've shared these experiences with. So again, during my 12-year journey in the Air Force, I got to the point where I felt like I had an enemy working against me every single day. And it was exhausting being, protective of myself, being defensive, just thinking that I was walking on eggshells every day. It was mentally draining, physically draining, and I was just tired of it. I was so tired. I would say at the end of every 4 years, I was contemplating, should I re-enlist for more? Do I want to go through this again? But I kept hoping that things would change. And sadly for me, it did not change. Things did not change. So towards the end of my career is when things got rougher, I would say, than they have ever been before. I did experience hard times during my 12 years, but as I stated, during the end of my 12 years is where I experienced the most hardship at. So I had so many emotions, built up in me over time. I had to go and find. So this one time, I was so frustrated. I was so hurt. I was so, I can't think of any other words, but I had so much pent up in me that I wanted to scream, but I couldn't scream in the place that I was at. So I told myself I need to go find a place, a dark place, away from work, where I could just release this pent up frustration, these feelings. So that's what I did. I went into like a storage closet or somewhere. I closed the door, made sure, there was no one like walking the halls or anything like that. And I screamed. And it surprised me because, I've never felt these feelings before. So it surprised me when I screamed. And then so I was like, okay, I just need one more scream and then I'll get back to work. And then that second scream that I did, it brought me to tears because it was like I was releasing, the things that were going on my job. And so after that, I gathered myself, I opened the door, and I went back to work. And little did I know, I was experiencing a panic attack. And this was the beginning of my mental health being attacked. So, another experience that I had, again, this is towards the end of my 12-year journey, I experienced being negatively singled out. And this was done on a daily basis. I didn't know what to do about it because I felt like I couldn't trust anyone, and it was just not my feelings. This was the truth. I literally could not trust people that I worked with. And it got to the point where I was becoming so anxious about everything and everybody. Everything that I did at work, I wanted to make sure that it was perfect. There were days and even weeks that I would stay after work, even when my shift was over, rummaging through the tasks that I have already completed, trying to make sure that once I leave work, no one could say anything upon my return the next day. That's how anxious it got. And this was not, let me just check the things that I went over. I would spend hours after work going through everything that I was supposed to do 2 and 3 times. That's how shot my nerves were. That's just how people made me feel. And I did accept those feelings, because at that particular time, those feelings and those actions, they felt real to me. So I began to panic every day. I began to become anxious every day, to the point where I would wake up in the morning, get dressed, and I would be crying. On my way to work, I would be crying. And this one particular day, once I got to the entry of the base, I was giving my ID card to one of the security officers, and my hand was shaking, and I couldn't wipe away my tears fast enough before I got to the gate. And he was like, ma'am, are you okay? And I was like, well, you know what, it's just one of those mornings where, think everything that could go wrong, did go wrong, when actuality, I was in fear of going to work because of the experiences that I was having with my coworkers. So like I said, the closer I got to work, the more that I would cry, the more I would be sobbing. And I would get to work early so I could have time to sit in the car and gather myself, pump myself up, and just put on a brave face before I go into work. And it was like I was put down so bad at work that it was like people didn't even care. People just were out for themselves. They were literally out for themselves. They didn't want anyone to get in their path. And then there were also people on the job that just needed someone to pick on. There were people on the job who were literally bullies, and they just picked a person, and that person just happened to be me that they chose to pick on. And I got to the point where I was so paranoid. I thought everybody was talking about me. I thought nobody was on my side. I didn't know who I could talk to, who I could trust, who I could tell these things to that was happening to me. I was just so paranoid, so anxious, having panic attacks. And I just didn't know what to do. So after that went on for a few months, I said, maybe I need to talk to someone. And this one particular day, I don't really remember what happened, but I had a panic attack. And I was crying so bad that I said I needed to talk to someone immediately. And I was so scared that my leadership wouldn't allow me to talk to anyone that I ended up waiting until my lunch break to go and talk to a mental health provider. And once I got checked in, they saw how, much of a wreck that I was. And they said, okay, we will have someone come out immediately to get you. So I was called back, and I sat on the couch, and this is my first time ever. It's like almost therapy. This is my first time ever talking to someone mental health related, because I didn't, my mental health was never under attack before. So it was so bad, and I was crying so hard that the provider could not understand anything that I was saying. So she actually told me, to just take a deep breath, calm down, and just write everything down that's going on, because she couldn't understand me. So I was able to write some things that happened just before I came to see her. So she said, okay, so let's start there. And so we started there, and I actually calmed down, and it was a good session. And so she ended up scheduling me an appointment. And I told her that I didn't trust my leadership, and I didn't trust my supervisors or my coworkers. So I would need an appointment for later in the evening. Basically her last appointment of the day. So when I got off from work, no one would suspect what I was doing. They would just think that I was going home. So that's how fearful I was of my leadership, and how judgmental I felt that they would be, and how I thought that I would be in trouble if I exposed them, because I was like, I don't want any trouble. So I had to hide the fact that I was seeing a mental health provider at this point. I was emotionally and psychologically, I would use terrified. This is my experience. So I would say the word terrified because I was literally falling apart, and I have never experienced that before. So we had several appointments, and I would tell her, what's going on, how I was feeling, and just everything that I was going through while I was at work, and how I would come in early, and how I would stay late, and how I was being belittled and singled out, and all this stuff. And she cannot believe what I was telling her. I mean, I'm not going into detail right now, but I went into detail because it's a session, so I could be honest in that session. So she was just taking notes, and then the more that I got to talk to her, the more that I felt like I was unloading this emotional baggage that I was carrying around with me every day. So